Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
I have been super uncomfortable the past couple days.
Yeah?
Because,
Why?
Well, so I got my new startup project called Screenweave. And I found myself...
Yeah, you guys have been making a splash.
Yes, well, we've been trying to. But It's a startup. It's new. It's a new art project. I like to call my businesses art projects. And... But the past couple of weeks, I've been doing just like super basic things, but basic business things, which I know how to do, but I haven't like started. You and I started a company in horology like in 2015 or something. Tightrope started way a long time ago.
It's been a while.
So it's been a while since I've been in the startup mode. And,
right, exactly.
And things with marketing and the sales approach and things like are different than they have been. And actually, I think like right now they're kind of in a period of change.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely.
And so I was like, we're like waffling around trying to figure out some like product market things and how does this product fit with the market and is this what the customers want? We're trying to figure out if this is what the customers want or the thing we already built. And
who are our customers?
Right, totally.
Yeah, like
basic
all
things.
Of the things.
Who's going to actually buy this thing that we built? Which is not the place you want to be in when you're making a new product. But that's where a lot of projects are.
I agree. Yes, for everybody. Totally agree.
So I'm like researching like marketing methods and how to reach customers, and then I'm trying to schedule customer interviews with like some people that actually use the product now to figure out what they want. And the uncomfortable part is like I feel like an absolute beginner. I feel like it's my first one. I just and I'm like I'm just like thrust back into what I just feel like a novice. And
oh my gosh, I'm going through that too right now. Same thing. So I am in the process of developing a quarterly leadership development program for a client. And I've done this countless times, countless. I can't even begin to guess how many times I've done this. And I am doing the exact same thing. I'm like going back to the very, very beginning of creation and like, what am I going to talk? Do I even know what to talk about? And like ridiculous, like I'm asking myself crazy things in the beginning of this that make no sense to ask myself. And yet I feel so like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So this is
like for
this
real.
This isn't like me as an adult going back and doing my elementary school math homework, right? Like I know it's not going back and doing easier work. It is going back to being a beginner and not knowing how to do a particular task or subject. And it feels really awkward.
Yeah, it feels really awkward. I think, and you're putting yourself here though. Like this is you choosing. This is you choosing to be a beginner again, right? It's just the same with me. It's like, could I pull something off of the shelf that I've done 100 times and plug and play, and would it be absolutely fine? Yes, but that's not what I'm choosing for myself. Like I'm going back to the very core basic of it and starting over again. Like even curriculum that I have used for 10 years, I am looking at it as though I have no idea what it is. Why do we do that?
That's a good question. I think there's two things. Yeah. Why do we do that? And then I want to talk about like exactly how it feels to be in that beginner situation, because I was really thinking a lot about why does this feeling or this kind of mix of feelings come up when I feel like a beginner again? But
oh, that's such a good
why
question.
do you and I specifically, I don't know about other people, but why do you and I go put ourselves into a beginner again situation? I think it's because both that's yours and my learning model.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If you look at
Painful.
If you look at you and me as a case study, it's pretty routine that you and I put ourselves into situations where we don't really know what we're doing and we like to try to figure it out. Choreology, even this podcast. The way we started this podcast is we were having coffee and we're like, would it be possible to make a podcast? I don't know. Let's go try. Right. And then here we are like hundreds of episodes later.
And still acting and feeling at times like we have no idea what we're doing.
But I think, even when we were talking the other week about how like neither you or I like kind of had formal education or at least finished college.
Yeah.
Right. I think because of that, we had to rely on this learning model where we just put ourselves into projects where we had to figure it out as beginners. We had no extra boost in learning. So I think part of why we do it is probably that's why we're comfortable. We're comfortable doing that. Comfortable-ish.
I'm not comfortable-ish. I'm not comfortable. I flippin' hate the feeling. I hate the feeling of not knowing something. And yet I put myself there all the time. All the time. Wow.
Isn't that fun?
I'm nuts. I think we've just reached a conclusion.
This is why I always refer to our podcast as JJ's weekly therapy, because you figure it out together. So being a beginner again, why is it uncomfortable? Why do you think it's uncomfortable, especially as an adult, to be a beginner? Because
I know why I am
seasoned in your career, right? I mean, you're an expert in many aspects of your career and your life.
Yeah. Well, I've got a little more experience than I did 20 years ago. I'll at least give you that. What did you? How did you phrase the question?
Just how does it feel to be a beginner? Like what are the feelings?
No, you said why do we? You said why do we do?
No, we just talked about that. You and I do it because of our learning model.
See, even just thinking about learning makes me stress out.
Yeah. So tell me, like, the question is, like, when you're doing these beginner activities, where you're feeling like a beginner again,
why do I stress out? Yeah.
What feelings are coming up? Because I don't think it's just one feeling. I think it's a mix of feelings that's causing a sort of a big swell of emotion.
Yeah, I actually think that it is this juxtaposed position of being really excited about creating something new and being proud of what I create and being excited about how it's going to impact people. Like I feel like in my space, there's a million people that do it, millions of people that do what I do. And some are so good and some are so bad. And I always think like, oh, it's just so exciting to come up with a way to impact people in which they feel it in their stomach, not that they feel it in their head. And so this idea of being able to create something that is meaningful and life-changing for people, like that's the positive, exciting part of it. But oddly and equally opposite is this feeling of there's no way I can do that. And I don't think it's truth, but it's definitely what I think to myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a part of the learning model, but I freak myself out every time. Like, oh no, you're not gonna be able to do. Boy, those are pretty lofty goals that you've got there. Well, I don't know why you think. It's like, why do I do that?
Yeah, you have like
crazy.
An expectation mismatch there.
Totally. But those are the feelings that are roaming around. This feeling of enthusiasm and excitement and this feeling of expansion. Mirrored and coupled with this feeling of constriction and what if it's not enough? I think more of that's it. What if it's not enough?
Yeah. So
what about you?
I get what you're saying there. There's a little bit of am I good enough to actually take this project on? For me, it's like one of the activities I did last week was I signed our startup, aka me and John, up for a thing called the Beta MN accelerator.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like a startup like kind of accelerator program where they teach you and kind of guide through a lot of like the fundamental or early stage business stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's so mixed because I'm like, this would be good for me and John to go through. It's like a structured program to help you get off the ground. But then I'm like looking at like the other people, like kind of like the mentors in this program that help the startups. And I'm like, wait, I'm also could totally be one of those mentors. Because like if you look at them, I'm like, wait, I have like a track record of entrepreneurship that's probably even better than the people that are gonna possibly mentor me. So I was like very mixed emotion about it. I'm like, should I sign up for a thing where like I'm the newbie, but also I'm very experienced in a lot of different areas?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was like a real conflict for me. And then again, if I look at my work history, you would say like, oh no, JJ should be able to just start another company. He's done it a bunch of times. It seems like a thing he does.
Yeah. Hit play.
Like, just go. Play. But I always want to try to be learning. So I'm in a situation where I don't feel super confident. Like I don't have a high level of confidence. Right. I do want to feel like the energy around the startup community. So I want to be in the startup community, but I'm kind of not in the startup community anymore because I'm too like seasoned or experienced. So this is a weird mix.
No, I actually have the same thing. I was reflecting as you were talking because I have the exact same thing in coaching. I mean, I've been coaching for years and years. I've had my business for over 20 years. And I was just thinking, I still hire coaches for me. And one of the last coaches that I hired for a specific application was younger than me and way less experienced than me. But she had a perspective that was so unique that I was really intrigued about. And some of the things that she said to me and the way that she said it to me, had I been looking at it through the lens of, I already know this, I could have been very dismissive. However, the other thing I recognized is I really like the feeling of being in the coaching conversation from the opposite chair. And I really like remembering the feeling of what it feels like to learn even a nugget or something new. I'm always learning something. And I do really like that feeling of learning. I feel really jazzed when I get some kind of new skill or new perspective. Like I jump on my phone and I start writing out a list about it, or I immediately think of something else and I go and get a copy so that I can apply it. I do have that same thing where I get really fired up, even if it could look very mundane and very simple. So I kind of think that that's the case for a lot of people, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. So the question I would have is I think you and I certainly like are talking about how like we actually use this as our learning model, but being a beginner again at something, especially something that you like, people think you shouldn't be a beginner at, is really hard to get over. I mean, I really had like the other week, I had to have a moment with myself where I was just like, hey, get over it. Suck it up, Buttercup. Let's get going. A little pep talk with myself, because like I was totally shutting down. I was like not wanting to engage in a bunch of things because like I didn't want to like reach out to my CEO peers about my new project because I kind of felt like embarrassed that I didn't know some basic questions or some basic answers to some simple questions. I didn't want to look.
So your ego hopped in there. Your ego hopped in there.
My ego was in there, and it was just totally shutting me down. And
I had the exact same thing last week with the same thing. That's super weird.
So it could have, like, it shut me down for a couple of days until I realized, like, wait a second, I see what's happening now. This is the beginner thing, and I was able to like just kind of power through it. Like I don't have any other better suggestion other than like recognize it and then just get through it and just break through that barrier, because that barrier, it's like you know, it's like a piece of paper. It's not a hard barrier to get through. But when all you see is blank in front of you, it's intimidating.
Yeah. One of my coaches, Susan, always used to say, it's just a paper tiger. It's just a paper tiger. Okay, hey, so I want to ask you the question that you asked me a little while ago that you had to repeat like 13 times because I wasn't listening the first 12. Well, I mean, I was, but maybe. So why do you think, for you, your feelings, like what are those feelings? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, again, it stems from like an ego thing. It's like when the perception of who I am and what I'm actually, and then contrast it against what I'm trying to do, which is new. Like there is the problem. And again, I feel like really, I feel like I'm not good enough, or I feel really self-conscious of the things I'm about to do.
Yeah, me too.
And
yeah.
And even though I personally like the learning part, what happens is I start to focus on the external optics of the whole thing right away. Yeah. And then I just start getting absolutely mental about it. Like, oh, people are going to think I'm like kind of foolish, or I don't know what I'm doing, which I don't. Yeah. Like, it's okay to not know what you're doing. But I get that whole ego thing. And I was really surprised how quickly that snapped into place.
Oh, it is a sneaky little bugger, isn't it? I feel like, too, the things that are interesting to me is some of the words that you were using is, you know, like the perception of things, you know, and it's like, isn't that interesting? So we are on this planet to create, and we're never done creating. You and I talk about that all the time.
Yep.
And if we're always in a process of creating, that means we're never done. So if we're never done, that means we're never perfect.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's just an easy linear thing to think about. However, the minute we start worrying about what other people think about our creations, we lose all of our momentum. I mean, I do. So I was creating all this stuff, all this content. I had all these great ideas. Honestly, I was sitting at my desk, and you can always tell that I'm in this place if my desk is messy, because I do not like having a messy desk at all. And I just felt so blocked. I kept saying I have writer's block. I have writer's block. And this lasted for 2 days. It's super weird that we were on the same,
you know what?
Same path.
You didn't have writer's block. You had beginner's block.
I had beginner's block.
We should. What a phrase.
Yeah, we're getting T-shirts. That's a good one. Yeah, beginner's block, because that is really true.
I think that's really a thing.
It is
beginner's
a thing.
Block.
Yep. Yeah. And I sat there and I got more and more mad. And boy, the more you get upset and you get into your emotions, and then you start worrying about what other people think, and then you start thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have the time. I need to have this done in a certain time. Like, you start piling all these things on, and you have lost the ability to be expansive and be creative and begin like a beginner begins. You know, like, look at children. You know, the beginner model for a child is so different than the beginner model for an adult. Children have no idea that they can fail. Yep. So they are so all in and have joy in the creation. Yep. For me, if I'm creating a speaking event and I go into that beginner's block, do you know what I remember? Failing on the stage of Disney. That's what I remember.
That's exact.
Right? It's very real.
There's the thing that when I was explaining what I was feeling, I didn't realize until you just said it, is that fear of failure is in the background as a beginner. And you're right. The way children learn is they build the tower of Legos, and then they knock the Legos over, or it falls over.
Right. And then some poor adult steps on them barefoot out of the shower.
But failing is part of the process of being a beginner. And the issue is when we become more experienced, we get deeper into our careers, or we get deeper into even like raising kids or whatever it might be. I
agree.
We lose the ability or the willingness to fail because it's embarrassing. Like, well, how could you have failed at a thing? You've been doing it for 25 years. Yeah. And so that fear of failure, I think, really drives the emotions around being in a beginner situation.
Yeah. And you know what I just thought of as we were talking? I just thought of, my goodness, this explains why people don't like to start new things, and so many people won't do it. So many people are just like, no, I'm good. I'm in my comfort zone. I don't want to. This is the whole thing. This is the model. And then you look at people like professional athletes. Well, they have learned to overcome that, haven't they? Like, think about that. The really good professional athletes, like if you see on LinkedIn, once in a great while, you'll see a little video clip of some athlete being interviewed after they've lost a game, right? And you'll see there's a couple of them that are roaming around. I can't even remember who it was, but he was like the whole team of sports reporters were clamoring over this guy, over this table, and he had a mic, and they were asking him, well, how do you feel about losing? Boy, you know, that was a tough, and his response was beautiful, because it's exactly this. He was like, it was one game. My whole life is one game at a time. It's just one game. I'm not going to let that stop me. So he's going to go back and he's going to practice harder, and he's going to continually push himself to be a beginner every single day so that he gets better and better, or she gets better and better. You know, it's just really interesting to me, this whole beginner's block.
Yeah. I talk all the time with my team about how it's okay to fail, how the way we learn, move forward, everything is failing. So anytime,
but you don't mean you.
Apparently I don't.
Right?
Yeah, because
that's what we're saying.
Because the feeling the past couple of weeks has, now that we unpack it a little bit, is definitely around the fear of failure. But
yes, I agree.
It's if you logically think, if we use like our logical part of our brain, of course failing is going to be part of the journey when you're doing new things. Like it, right? Everyone would agree with that statement. If you're trying something new,
of course,
are you going to fail here and there? Yes, but that's not how you feel. Like the feeling and the thinking are not aligned, and that's another part of this beginner problem. Is because you have a misalignment in
which is the self-awareness journey right there.
And your,
that is our self-awareness journey right there, where your emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical bodies are in alignment. Everything is easy, and you are in your centered space. And when it's not, here we are right here. This is what it feels like when you're not. And I also love how we know these things logically, and we give grace to this concept and to these ideas and to these people. But not us.
Not us,
right?
Exactly.
So it's so interesting, because we just need to remember to add, and me too. Yeah. It's okay to fail, and me too. It's totally okay to fail. And I wonder if, like, one of the key ways we can consider, now that this is in our awareness, I wonder if one of the key ways that we consider is shifting, or kind of outgrowing this idea a little bit, is to trace it back to what our actual learning model is. At what point of our learning model do we insert all of these emotions and thoughts, you know, and can we shift it way at the beginning of the whole thing? Can we shift it just a little bit in terms of what our expectations are? Can we shift our learning model that we've had our whole lives to just add, and I'm going to shift my expectation just a little bit? What would that do for us, I wonder?
That's a good question. Here's how I put this into practice this week. this new insight.
Okay, because it's new. We're all new today. Yep.
I have been doing the same workout routine at the same gym for like 4 years in a row every week.
Yep. Yeah.
I stopped doing that this summer, mostly because it was downtown by my office, and I just kind of fell out of the routine. But I was like, I gotta go figure out a new workout thing. And the best case for me is like I have an appointment on a calendar that I have to go to. Or a accountability buddy to go with. So
that's a good idea.
So I signed up for like a new workout class at my gym. And it's like
good for
different.
you.
It's like I don't even know these terms, but it's like weightlifting, but with like a bar and the weights on the end. It's like Olympic weightlifting. It's kind of like an Olympic weightlifting class.
Do you get to get a cool belt?
Okay, I hope not. But I signed up for this thing. This is so silly. I signed up for this thing, and of course I knew it was like this Olympic style weightlifting class. The night before, I'm just like trying to find every single excuse to not go to that thing.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
But I'm like, yeah, and it's because it was new, and I was going to be a beginner. I knew how to do the other workout thing. I don't know how to do this one, and the resistance the night before was huge.
Great word.
And I'm like, why am I so resistant? All I have to do is show up, and the guy will tell me what to do. This is not like rocket science here. I'm not out on the edge here. But there it was again. It was this I had this beginner block towards doing that new thing. And that's where, like, thinking back to the past couple of weeks, I was like, oh, there it is again. There's the beginner thing. I just need to get through that, like you said, that paper tiger, get to the other side. And as soon as I was to the other side, I was like, oh, wait, this isn't that hard. Got it. Now I can do this now. Yeah. But it's funny how that little hesitation, that little resistance becomes really, really big and present in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as they always say, whatever you resist persists. Right. So I think fighting that resistance with a stronger energy to overcome almost makes it worse every time. And like for me, what I do is I just walked away from my desk. I was like, nope, I'm going to just go do something else. I'm going to just completely do something else for the rest of the day. I'm not even going to think about it. Doesn't matter what the timeline is. Doesn't matter what the output is. I'm just walking away. And then all this stuff flooded to me that night. All this new information came in. So I do think that's an interesting part of a person's learning model too, is to recognize what things help you let go so that you aren't resisting and it is not persisting because you are resisting. I feel like Dr. Seuss right now.
That's quite the rhyming.
Who sews Sue socks? Sue sews Sue socks. Anyway.
So some techniques to get over this beginner block.
Yeah.
You put some space in between your activity
and shift gears
between your anxiety and your activity, I would say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's really good.
I gave myself a little pep talk on how I just needed to like power through the problem. And I did commit myself to a handful of like initial uncomfortable activities. Kind of like I didn't let myself not do those things.
Yeah.
From like a
good
calendar
So
perspective.
good.
That's maybe more like I don't know, a more determined method of just trying to power through it. What else? How else do you think you can get over this particular moment of block?
I actually just wonder if having this conversation is going to unlock people's blocking, just because it does. We're talking about how we think about it, also what it feels like. Yeah, what those feelings are.
Yeah, stop and take inventory of your feelings, and then just recognize that they're okay and keep moving forward.
And see if you see patterns in them. Because this is literally my learning model every time.
Much less gentle with myself.
Exactly. Me either. I'm a loser. I'm never, ever going to be able to create content for this 20-minute thing again.
All right. So our help to everyone else is be a little more gentle with yourself. You'll get through it.
And have a sense of humor. Have a little sense of humor.
Accountability buddies. I'm always a big fan of that. For me, with John, he's also kind of new at this role. So for him, talking with a friend, a colleague, a partner,
right,
and say, hey, it does feel awkward where we're at right now, doesn't it? And just have that conversation is another really good step.
And I always think this, nothing ever stays the same. So I think sometimes when we're in these moments of emotion and high stress and, kind of the terror barrier is happening and we don't know how to get through it, I just think we have to remind ourselves that nothing is the same. We're not going to stay feeling like this forever. It's just right now.
Just think about the future. Think about your future state and how great it's going to be when you're not a beginner.
Precisely.
Did you enjoy this episode? please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.